I'll get started. I want to start off by giving all honor and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Harakah Kwadash, Lawalanyam. Double honors to my apostles and elders at Great Millstone. Shalom to the elect, the ones out there who are doing this work diligently and chiefly keeping the faith, making your calling and your election sure. The title of this one is called Faith Without Good Deeds is Dead. All right. It's your brother Kazak Rakar coming back at you with another video through the Spirit. Hopefully, this is edifying. This is the book of James, or Yaquab, chapter 2, and I'm going to start at verse 14, and I'm going to read it in the NLT. It says, "What good is it, dear brothers and sisters, if you say you have faith but don't show it by your actions? Can that kind of faith save anyone?" I'm going to read it again. James chapter 2, verse 14. "What good is it, dear brothers and sisters, if you say you have faith but don't show it by your actions? Can that kind of faith save anyone?" So, in this truth of ours, you can't just proclaim that you have faith. You have to show it by your actions, right? Because faith is an action word. Faith is a verb, you see. So, by you putting forth action, doing the good deeds, as far as like, being a brother, being a listening ear to a brother, helping a brother in their times of need, whatever it may be, you know, by you doing those things, you exemplify your faith, right? You exemplify your faith. This is James chapter 1, verse 22. It says, "But don't just listen to God's word. You must do what it says. Otherwise, you are only fooling yourselves." You see? So it's very important to be a doer of the word and not just a hearer only. If you just hear and don't commit your actions to following the Lord, then you're only fooling yourself. Are you really changing? This is James chapter 1, verse 23 in the NLT. It says, "For if you listen to the word and don't obey, it is like glancing at your face in a mirror." Verse 24, "You see yourself walk away and forget what you look like." Think about the times when brothers approached you for help, or, an individual approached you for help. How did you respond in that instance, right? How did you show up? I mean, did you even show up? Did you, lend a hand if you could? Now, I understand that, we have work and other responsibilities, but, if you really have faith in this thing, you're going to put forth effort to do good deeds on behalf of the body. It's very important to do that because it shows your faith. We don't do things for the eyes of men. We do things because we know that the Lord is watching. We know that this world is a stage and everything is being analyzed and viewed by our power. So these different instances where you have to help, or you have to exemplify your faith, is there to help you grow, is there to help you endure to the end. You can't look at the different events that come up into your life that require you to help, or that require you to exemplify your faith. You can't look at that as a bad thing or a negative thing. You actually have to look at it as an opportunity to grow, an opportunity for you to, do what the Lord commanded you to do. Because that's why we're in this thing. We're in this thing to fulfill the will of our Father, right? And the will of our Father is to have the elect on this earth exemplify their faith, right? That's part of the will of the Father. These end times is going to cause you to exemplify your faith even more in Yahweh Hashem Yahushua. You know, real talk. This is James chapter 1, verse 25. It says, but if you look carefully into the perfect law that sets you free, and if you do what it says and don't forget what you heard, then God will bless you for doing it. You know, and part of the law, right? One of the laws is to love thy neighbor as you'll love yourself, right? Have no other God before the Lord, right? That's another commandment, you know. So by you doing these things that the scriptures say, it shows your faith. This is James chapter 2 and verse 15 in the NLT. It says, suppose you see a brother or sister who has no food or clothing. Verse 16, and you say goodbye and have a good day. Stay warm and eat well, but then you don't give that person any food or clothing. What good does that do? You see, this world is full of empty words, right? It's a liquid love. It's a love that falls through your hands. But when you come into this truth, you realize what love really is. It's a solid love. It's something that you can hold. And you know, these words, when you say to individuals, have a great day, or you know, it'd be really empty words. But when you look upon a brother or a sister and you say have a good day, that's not empty. You're really, you know, you're really passionate about your brother or your sister, and you really want them to have a good day, you know, or you are help to the best of your ability to assist them in having a good day, you know. Real talk, man. You know, I wish I could help every brother. You know what I'm saying? Every brother that's around me, every brother that's in my vicinity. Every time I, you know, wake up, I'm thinking about a brother, or I'm thinking about, you know, how I can be a better version of myself to assist the body more. You know, this walk, yeah, we're together as far as like, you know, in our group, right? But it's also an individualized walk, you know, and in this walk of ours, you gotta constantly improve and become better, so that way you can exemplify your faith even more towards the brothers, you know, towards the body, you know, and most importantly towards Yahweh Shem Yahushua. All right, so don't just be putting out empty words to brothers, you know, saying have a good day, you know, stay warm, and you know you got an extra coat but don't give it to them, or you know you got an extra jacket, don't give it to them. You know you got some food, don't share it with them. You know what I'm saying? Like real talk, man. In these times, man, people are going to become more and more selfish, and the men of the Lord are going to become more and more, selfless. So as the world becomes selfish, the men of the Lord are going to become more selfless, you know, because in order to actually move as a body, you have to be able to act as your particular member. If you are arm, you can't try to be the head. If you a toe, you can't try to be the big toe. You see what I'm saying? Everything is going to be, or everything is already in its proper arrangement. So exemplify your faith. You know, this is James chapter 2, verse 17. It says, so you see, faith by itself isn't enough. Unless it produces good deeds, it is dead and useless, right? So the example that was given in verse 16 showed you how an individual seeing their brother said, stay warm, but didn't offer a coat. You see what I'm saying? Seeing their sister said, hey, stay full, stay full, stay hydrated, but didn't offer water. You know, it's not saying that you just give everybody everything. No, it's a balance to it, right? You got to know who you're giving to. This is a brother we're talking about. This is a sister we're talking about. You see what I'm saying? So you care for them differently than the ones that are in the world. You know, the scriptures does say, if it's possible, be at peace with all men. You know what I'm saying? But you know, And that's true. If it's possible, be at peace with all men. But when we talk about giving and when we're talking about committing the acts of helping one individuals out with coats and things like that, we can help the body with that. Know who you're giving to. Now it'd be other people on the streets, that ask for change, the Lord to put the spirit on you to give them some money. Hey, so be it. All right, that's fine too. Whatever, but the main focus I'm honing in on is, the relationship between, the believers, right? It's different accounts in the scriptures that shows us the relationship between the believers. One of the greatest characteristics I can take from reading over the accounts of the believers is the fact that they were selfless, right? They were selfless, right? And being selfless, in this world is abstract. It's something that is not, looked upon or is not praised. But the thing is, you got to become more selfless in order to really grow in this thing, in order to really exemplify your faith, right? And imagine you may have to be a martyr. That's being selfless, because that that these things that we have, this truth, it comes with a sacrifice, and you want to exemplify your faith to the Lord the best way you can. So you may have to be a martyr, and it is what it is, but you're going to exemplify that faith. Lord willing, I'm a part of that number, man. That's what I want to do. I want to just exemplify my faith in the Lord, show my faith by my actions, by my deeds. You can't just say you believe, you have to show that you believe, because faith by itself isn't enough, right? It's not enough. Faith by itself is not enough. Your actions have to show that you believe. This is James chapter 2, verse 18. It says, and now someone may argue, some people have faith, others have good deeds. But I say, how can you show me your faith if you don't have good deeds? I will show you my faith by my good deeds. Okay. So, for example, Leviticus chapter 11 let us know that you don't supposed to eat the swine. You show you have faith in the Lord by doing what? By committing yourself to stop eating swine and never touching it again. You see what I'm saying? That shows your faith in the Lord. He told you to do something. You have faith enough to listen to that message and change your life. James chapter 2 and verse 19 in the NLT, it says, you say you have faith, for you believe that there is one power. Good for you. Even the demons believe this, and they tremble in fear. So the demons even know who Yahweh is, and they tremble, right? Because of the power of the Lord, right? That's why it's very important to fear the Lord. This is James chapter 2 and verse 21. Don't you remember that your ancestor Abraham was shown to be right with God by his actions when he offered his son Isaac on the altar? See, that was an act of faith. Verse 22, it says, you see his faith and his actions work together. His actions made his faith complete. You see, the actions make your faith complete. When Elder Apostle Peter was a martyr, right, and he went through with that martyrdom, for the Yahweh Shem Yahushua, that act of faith that he did, the action, made his faith complete, right? And that's just one example. By you changing your life and you sacrificing your life on behalf of Yahweh Shem Yahushua, that act of faith made your faith complete, right? Yahushua dying on behalf of the Israelites, that was an act of faith that made his faith complete, right? It solidified his faith through his actions, right? Through the actions. Faith is an action word. James chapter 2 and verse 23. And so it happened, just as the scriptures say, Abraham believed God, and God counted him as righteous because of his faith. He was even called the friend of God. Verse 24. So you see, we are shown to be right by God by what we do, not by faith alone. So your actions matter. What you say matter. What you do matter. You know, it really matters, man. Right? That's why the Lord said, those who sow iniquity shall reap the same. Right? You reap what you sow. You see? So you show the Lord that you believe through your actions. Right? That exemplifies your faith. That solidifies your faith and make it complete. What you do, your actions, how you're occupying in this world, what you're doing to others. Just because the world is dirty and nasty, don't mean that you have to be. You know, and I'm realizing that more and more, that you don't have to react just like the world reacts. You can react in the spirit, you know, because the Lord has called us out of this world, you know, and it's our job to make our call and our election sure. So how do you do that? By completing faithful acts, right? By completing faithful acts, because it's all about faith, nothing else. So hopefully this is edifying. I'm gonna end it by giving all honor and glory to. Matter of fact, I'm gonna continue this on. This is James chapter 2 and verse 25. It says, Rahab the prostitute is an other example. She was shown to be right with God by her actions when she hid those messengers and sent them safely away by a different road. Yeah, so this harlot, which was a heathen, right? She she hid the messengers of the Lord, and that was an act of faith, and the Lord saved her and her household at that moment, from the destruction that was coming upon that city, by the Israelites. Okay, so through this heathen had showed an act of faith, and at that moment in time, the Lord granted them mercy because of that act of faith. This is James chapter 2 and verse 26. It says, just as and when you go into this Rahab right here, this word Rahab, this in the blue letter, this how you know she was a heathen, right? She was a harlot of Jericho. The word Rahab goes back into the word wide, right? Wide. Okay, so she was a harlot. All right, and the Lord showed mercy to this heathen because she showed the act of faith or kindness or mercy towards his people. Right, so this is James chapter 2 and verse 26. It says, just as the body is dead without breath, so also faith is dead without good works. I'm going to read that one more time and close it up. James chapter 2 and verse 26. Just as the body is dead without breath, so also faith is dead without good works. You see? So just like the body is dead without breath, your faith is dead without good deeds. Your faith is dead without good works. You can't say that you believe in the Lord and you're not putting forth no action. It don't measure up. You see, so hopefully this was edifying. I'm going to end it by giving all honor and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Harakah Kodash, Lai Yam. Double honors once again to my apostles and elders at Great Millstone. Shalom once again to the elect. Abba.